Hey YouTube, it's Jeff at Darkmoon Metals. Well, the holiday buying season is finally over, which means I have slowed down a little bit and I can now get back in front of the camera. We're not quite into 2017 yet, still got a couple of days to go, but almost 11 months ago to the day, I released a video on how to make a steel rose, or at least my interpretation of it. During the course of making the flower, I had mentioned that I had used some specialty tools that I had designed and made for that particular task. And since I posted that video, a lot of people have been curious as to what those tools are, how I made them, and would I be willing to share. Well, today I have a small rose to put together, and I'm going to be taking you through the tools that I made, why I made them, and how I use them. So let's take one more crack at the steel rose, this time with more detail. Before we get started, I just want to take the time to mention that this is my standard size steel rose. This one measures about 15 inches long and it's about 3.5 inches square at the bloom. Pretty typical. I make this size quite often. Today I'm going to be making a smaller one just for the project I'm working on. To give you an idea, this is the outside petal blank for the big roses. And this is going to be the outside petal blank for the one that I'm working on today. So you can tell that there is kind of a dramatic size difference between what I normally do and what I'm doing now. This is going to be a part of a sculpture, so it needs to be scaled to fit with the rest of the piece. The bulk of the pliers that I use all started out life as a pair of Stanley 6-inch pliers. They're adjustable pliers. I picked these things up for, I think, maybe $6.99, $7.99 a pair. Got a half a dozen pairs, and the steel's halfway decent, so it welds nice, it cuts nice, you can modify them pretty damn easily. And that was one of the key things I was looking for. The first tool I'm going to show you is a forming tool. I use this to start shaping the bud, the inside of the flower, along with this guy. And all these two pairs of pliers are, this is a pipe cut down the middle, this is another pipe cut down the middle, and a piece of solid round stock to fit. And these I primarily use just for the bud, the centermost petals. The outer petals, again, this is nothing but a piece of pipe that I cut down, formed it a little bit on the forge. I wanted to try to leave a uniform space of about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more in here, and that will allow me to start to fold at different size petals, so I could use them on the inners, the outers, smaller sizes, the copper roses, just about everything. Very simple and straightforward. The last pair of pliers that I use for the petals would be these guys. I happen to just have a long pair of pliers. I never use these for anything else. They're bent needle nose. So I decided to modify these rather than go out and buy another pair of regular sized ones. I went in, I removed all of the grooves for gripping, made it all nice and smooth, and what these are great for, this is what you can reach in with, bend, and because it is smooth, the petal just kind of flows with you when it's hot, and that's how I bend all the petals back and give it its final shape. Use a pair of regular needle nose jeweler's pliers, rounded. That's how I do all the forming of the, let me get in frame, the bottom part of the flower here. The blacksmith tongs come in handy. When all the petals are kind of spread out, I put the bloom in the center and basically just crimp it down. If you don't have one of these, and I might not be using this today because the flower I'm working with is a lot smaller than my normal size, you can get away with using a pair of channel locks. Now the last pair of pliers are these guys, and I don't use these by hand. I actually put this in the jaws of a vise and I crush this close. I use these to make the leaves. Now the leaf blank looks just like that, fresh off the plasma cam. And what I like to do, I made this a little bit wider and a little bit longer than I need because I can always cut this to whatever length I want. I roll this into a circle or into a tube, and eventually it comes out looking like that. And how I start this process off, I hit this with a straight peen hammer between the table and the face of the anvil, so I give it just kind of the start of a bend. And once that's established, these pliers, if you look, just have a hole milled in them. And I did this before I had a milling machine. I actually did this on the drill press. And what happens is the leaf sits in here, you close it up, and then you put this in the jaws of the vise, and as this closes, it starts to roll that stem a lot tighter. And this is the tool that I use to form all of the stems on all of my leaves. And since I've put this together, I can form a leaf in about 5 minutes, as opposed to trying to do it all by hand or rolling it over with the hammer. I used to spend a half an hour to 35 minutes just making 3 leaves for the sprays for the roses, and this has been a real time saver. Now, for those of you who didn't see the original video, my stem is nothing more than round stock threaded to a 1/4-20, and what I do is I put the nut down to the bottom of the threads, weld this, and then shape it so it looks like the natural part of a flower. I leave some of the threads exposed, and that aids in the assembly of the flower. Frilly bit first, and then it's a matter of biggest, middle, and finally the center. And you want to alternate these petals so that the slits are going in different directions. I put the nut on, tighten it down. Now we're ready for forming. When I first started making these roses, I used to secure them in the vise, and I found myself constantly trying to walk around the table to get to different angles on the flower to make it easier to work on. Since then, I made this little block, and all it is a piece of stock that has a hole in it appropriate to the size of the stem. I put it in the vise, lock it in, put the rose in, and now I can actually spin it rather than trying to walk all over the place and get the right angle to do the work. Now, whether you're using a pattern like mine or another pattern, generally all roses are made the same way. You start from the centermost petal and work your way out to the last layer. And I'm going to do this without speeding up the footage, just so people can see what's going on. I am using an oxypropylene torch. For this, it's more economical than using oxyacetylene. I'm going to lift up the first petal. I'm going to take this pair of pliers right here, and that gives me my first shape. I'm going to come back in, reheat it. Normally I wouldn't let it cool down. I'm going to come in with this pair of pliers right here. A little hotter. What I use the center petals for is to hide the bolt. Excuse me, the nut. I know my hardware. Stay down. this out for you. And as you can see, the nut's completely hidden. Now I start moving to the next set. I need to grab my other pair of pliers. Would have been helpful if I had everything with me, but no. Why be efficient, right guys? As I crimp these, I'm going to twist them slightly to the right. And you'll see why in a minute. And of course I'm using the next pair of pliers. Crimp. Come on, cooperate. Even with the pliers, they can be a little bit finicky. All right, I'm gonna let that cool off so I can show you where we are. All right, YouTube, as you can see, it's not perfectly formed, but all the petals are going in the direction I want them to go in. So from here, and I think I will use that big pair of blacksmith tongs, I'm going to show you how I start to shape and use these to close in the petals. Get these nice and warm again. Now I'm using a very low setting on this torch. Oxypropylene isn't quite as hot as oxyacetylene. You can actually get away with doing this with a propane torch if you want, but I like taking my time getting things back up to temperature. Okay, we're going to set the torch down. We're going to come in with the blacksmith tongs. And start to close in that flour. By the time your heat's gone, you should have something that looks like that. Now we're ready to begin the outside sequence of petals, and for this all I'm going to be using is this pair of pliers right here. Now the last time, for the inside row, we turned them slightly to the right. This time I'm going to tip them the other way to the left. I'm not used to working on a rose this small. I'm curious to see what the final dimensions are going to look like. I have an estimate. Come on. All right, I got all the petals in the direction I want them to go in. We're gonna get the bloom hot. And instead of stopping to show you this time, I'm just gonna go right in with the blacksmith tongs and compress the petals inwards. Okay. There we are. Alright guys, before I start rolling back the petals, I'm going to work with the bottom section of the bloom, just so I fold all these spikes out of the way. And for that I'm going to be using my little pair of needle nose pliers. I get a heat line as close to the bloom as I can get it. Bend down. Gonna make myself a little pigtail on the end here. Whoops, get over here. And then I'll heat the whole thing and turn it back in towards the flower. And it leaves me, where are you? With something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other three off camera. Alright guys, so now I'm ready to start rolling the petals back, and I'm going to be using my bent needle nose pliers that have been completely smoothed out. I've got my torch mounted in the soft jaws of my vise, and we're going to start the opposite way. We're going to work from the outside in. And I'm only going to try to heat up the tips. And what you do is you grab the petal and just roll the leaf by tilting the pliers. And move on to the next one. All right, quench that real quick. Now I'm going to move to the inside row. Again, trying to maintain a concentrated flame just where I want it. You can hear the little bits of water boiling off. And the whole process from start to finish with these tools, I can form a rose in probably about 15 minutes. Before I made these tools, it took me closer to 40 minutes. Okay, chill that a little. Now the tricky part is rolling back just a little bit of the center. Just that one little twist makes it look so much more natural. Actually, use my smaller needle nose on these. Need to get it nice and hot. There we go. Now, last but not least, I just warm up the outside. Don't need it super hot. I come back in with my blacksmith tongs. I'm not in frame, I am sorry. All right. There you have it, YouTube. All right, YouTube. Well, it's still raining, starting to get dark outside, and it's starting to get a little bit colder here in the shop. I didn't bother putting a fire in today simply because I was only going to be out here for 3 hours or so. Over the weekend, I plan to do more work, spend more time out here, so the dry wood that I have is going to be dedicated to that. Once again, this video was spawned by a viewer asking me a question. And like I've said in the past, if you guys have a question, don't hesitate to ask. If it's something I can answer, I'll shoot you back an email or reply to a comment, or hey, I can make a video. And don't be afraid of asking those like secret sauce questions. And what I mean by that, there are some folks out here who are so protective of the methods and the processes and the tools that they use when they're making their products. They don't necessarily want to share that with everybody because they look at you as competition. I don't believe in that. If you want to go out and make these tools and make these roses or make anything that I make, you know, that's your right. Go ahead and do it. I'm doing it. God knows that steel roses are not an original idea. It's not something that I came up with on my own. So I have no problem sharing what I know or how I do things with other people. I think the more people who are out doing things that are creative, maybe putting a couple extra bucks in their pocket in the process, hey, more power to you. That helps make the world go round. One thing I will mention, I am looking into getting an e-commerce section for my website coming up in 2017. Don't know when or how long it's going to take to implement that. I'm going to be selling some of the steel roses on eBay, and just to keep things kind of interesting, and like I've said, that there are other people out there making steel roses. Well, I decided to set mine apart a little bit. I created a certificate of authenticity. Each rose is going to be individually numbered. Each rose is going to have its own maker's mark, and it's just something out there that separates what I do from other people. And who knows, 20, 30 years down the road, maybe 100 years down the road, after I've had my dirt nap, somebody might find one of these, and who knows, hey, I might be famous. You never can tell. I mean, America has a habit of making stupid people famous. Take a look at Honey Boo Boo. So this is a sample of what the certificate is going to look like. It's going to be printed on like an ivory parchment. Borders are going to be green highlights on the lettering. And we're going to have the gold seal, and as you can see right there, I even have my little embossing stamp that came with all of my incorporation paperwork for the LLC. So I figured, hey, I might as well use it and have a little bit of fun and give somebody a keepsake along the way. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble on once again. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And like I said, if you have a question, just ask. You might see me sooner rather than later. Anyway, you guys have a great New Year's. If I don't see you before the ball drops, I hope you guys have a wonderful 2017, and look forward to seeing you all in the new year.